Casey Bell, host of Writer to Writer Interviews. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dakari Beckham, author of Gorillas in the Bay. I asked him 5 questions about his writing experience as well as questions pertaining to his book. And he in return asked me questions, 5 of them as well. Before we get into the interview, let me introduce you to Dakari Beckham. Dakari, author of the Gorillas in the Bay book series and newly released Tears of a Gangsta. He is a talented author whose work is nothing short of amazing. Dakari's work provides readers with an authentic glimpse into street life. He currently writes urban fiction, but plans to cross over to other genres. The author was born and raised in Northern California. The author experienced a challenging childhood, riddled with abuse, neglect, and witnessing violence firsthand. Dakari's early years were dark and pained. Due to the dysfunction that surrounded him, he was often uprooted and moved from place to place. After various placements with relatives, he found himself in foster care. He eventually turned to the streets, which consequently led to a lot of bad choices. In turn, those bad choices led to incarceration. There is more to this author than the street life. He always had a love for writing. In school, he excelled in creative writing. He would always live out the story as he was writing. Through his most difficult times, he used writing to escape from his surroundings. In addition to writing, he creates poetry, writes songs, and does artwork. He loves spending time with family, fishing, sports, and helping youth. He is happy that he's finally able to share his writing with others, putting his passion to work. Now let's get into this interview. Alright, so first question. First of all, tell me a little bit about yourself as far as being a writer.
Besides being a writer, I'm a family man. I believe in loyalty. I study a lot on spirituality in history. Trying to find, I'm trying to find answers to questions that most people don't ask.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I'm a nerd at heart, so I love to learn. And I like making people happy.
That's good. So, when did you start writing Gorillas in the Bay? And explain the title, what inspired the title.
Okay, well, I originally wrote Gorillas in the Bay I started in 2007. I tend to procrastinate a lot of times. So, the book drawn on. But to make the long story short, I finally finished it and started typing it on the USB. And I had it all complete. And unfortunately, I threw away the written pages and damaged my USB.
Oh, goodness.
I had the prologue and I had the last chapter. And I rewrote it all in December 2016. And but the title's interesting because the book that I wrote and the title didn't go hand in hand. It was initially called something else, but by the time I finished the story, because I may have an idea for a book and I'll start writing it, but the story tells itself in my head. So it changed so much that by the time I was done, that title no longer fit the story. I don't know if that makes sense or if you're familiar with that, but
that has happened to me a few times. What I planned to write, when I started writing, it didn't. Something else wrote itself.
Yeah, and I tend to see that like so far. It makes my book better.
Yes.
Instead of trying to keep it on board, I let it write itself and tell itself, and it makes the books better. And although the world is just now getting familiar with Gorillas in the Bay, so it's just one series or one book. I've actually written 9.
Oh wow!
So they're coming out. They're coming out a little slower, but I have a unique handwriting, and then getting it typed up and then edit it and re-edit it. My rewrite took time until I found the the app of Google that allows you to transfer handwriting to type.
Oh, okay.
It just speeds the process. But my editor, my publisher, and members of my team helped me come up with the new title.
Awesome.
I think we came up with 10 titles and then voted on.
So tell us just a little bit about the book, the storyline, and what inspired you to write it.
The inspiration is easy. It's based on a lot of true events in my life as well as in the life of people that I know very closely. That's where it originally started. And classes, you have three friends, Jason Voorhees, T-Rada, as well as Tommy Guns. They started an organization that T-Rada and Voorhees had been dreaming about and planning for years. And the three of them with their loyalty they start to build and form this team. The team becomes an organization. But it's a family. Most people in the organization were related. They rise to the upper echelon in the Bay Area street life. Unfortunately, in that life and along the way, there's a strain that pulls on you. And T-Rod fell victim to that strain. The power that the drug use, not being able to control or maintain hold on either one. And so unfortunately, I don't want to give it away, but unfortunately, he's left with an option. He can destroy what he built, or he can turn over his legacy to the two brothers whom he left.
No, okay.
And in return, they return their loyalty to building his legacy.
Okay. Sounds very interesting. So have you, in the many books you've written, have you ever encountered writer's block? And if you have, how did you deal with it?
Okay, so I do. I have two methods, right?
Okay.
The first one, as I write my stories, I try to envision that I'm watching a movie.
Okay.
Right? And so when I get writer block, I just think about what will naturally happen next in the movie. Or if it was in actually happening in real time, what would actually happen next in the story? Right? I mean, in real life. Such as, let's say, what if the characters come home and his fiance is cheating on him or whatnot? I don't want to make something too extraordinary or unbelievable. I would like to actually put myself in that position emotionally, mentally, and psychologically, and figure out how would I respond to it. That tends to help me a lot. The next one, you might laugh at me, right, because it's a little unorthodox, but if that doesn't work for me, I tend to pick up a book and read it. Now, I'll pick up a book like totally off the subject. Like I'll pick up a Nora Roberts, a Jackie Collins, or a Lee Child or something, and just start reading their novel. And it inspires me. Somehow while I'm reading, my subconscious is thinking. And before I know it, sometimes I get a chapter, sometimes two, into the book. And then I'll just put it down and finish my story.
I've actually seen that written somewhere, ways to unblock writer's block, and it says read books. So it's actually, yeah.
Okay, and here I was, I thought I was weird.
It really, I mean, I think it's because when you have writer's block, you need to take a break from what you're doing. Sometimes they say take a walk, but one thing it did say was just read and forget about what you're writing, and before you know it, it'll come to you.
Cause see, so. I haven't done any research on it, but my own little personal thought is writer's block comes when you try to overthink it, when you're overly working your brain.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and that is how it happens, it makes sense because once you relax and start reading, then your conscious and your subconscious separate and go back to the dimensions that they should be in, instead of getting wrapped around each other.
Exactly. So what encouraged you to write? Because I know when I started publishing books, there was a lot of people who came to me saying they wanted to write, and they've never done it, and they've given me all the reasons why. And one of the things I hear a lot is people say things like, "Well, I don't think I'm good enough," things of that sort. So when I hear people go out there and do it, I always wonder what caused you to have the courage to go ahead and write to hopefully help others do what they say they want to do.
Okay, you can't get mad at me. You have to accept my answer.
Okay.
Deal?
Deal.
Okay, so I don't think it's courage on my end. I told you I'm a nerd at heart, so I love to learn. And most times, if I learn something or stumble across something that impresses me, like a perfect book, a perfect movie, a perfect story, a perfect poem, or a beautiful poem, whatever, no matter what it is, if I come across something that impresses me, then I always wonder, can I do that? So it started off as, I wonder if I can do that.
Oh, okay.
And then it came into, you know what, I bet you I can do it. So I bet myself that I can actually write a book. And it came from there. Once I bet myself, I had no choice but to either win or lose. I don't like to lose. So I started writing a book. And that's how it came about. And as far as getting it published, once I was finished, a few close friends knew that I was working on it, and they were curious. So I let them read it. And they gave me such wonderful feedback that, we're most times in life, we are our worst enemies and worst critics.
Right.
So they gave me so much feedback, I didn't believe them. So I asked people that weren't so close, but they were associates that I knew that read, and I asked, hey, look what I stumbled across, read it, tell me what you think. And honestly, the reviews were good, so that's what encouraged me to publish it afterwards.
Cool. So, kind of off the subject, if you had the chance to have lunch or dinner and conversation with any author, whether they be dead or alive, which one would it be and why?
Okay.
This interview is so enlightening. Who did Dakari say he would enjoy lunch and conversation with? An author, dead or alive? Don't go away, we'll have his answer right after this.
27 heartbeats.
And we are back to Writer's interview. Before we left, I asked Dakari, dead or alive, which one author would you enjoy lunch and conversation with and why? Let's get back into the conversation and figure out who he chose. So, kind of off the subject, if you had the chance to have lunch or dinner and conversation with any author, whether they be dead or alive, which one would it be and why?
Okay, interesting. I have to choose one. Then I'll have to go up by Angela.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yes.
Since from a child, her poetry, a little that I've learned about her life was just so inspiring. So that moment that I've to date, she's been the most influential in my life as far as with my creativity. So I would love to have lunch with her and just pick her brain, so to speak, but not in a question answer format. I would honestly just allow her to control the conversation. She can go wherever she wants. And I believe that I'm well versed enough in many subjects that I can keep up with her. So I'll just talk about whatever she likes to talk about.
I hope you're enjoying it thus far. But don't go away, because when we return, Dakari will ask me 5 questions about me and my book, American History, Asians in America. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Hey there! If you're a writer, a creative writer, you write articles, plays, screenplays, poems, songs, or books. If you are a writer, I want to sit down and talk with you. Please contact me at authorcaseybell.com and click on Writer to Writer Interview and sign up so that I can have the chance to sit down and talk with you. Thank you and have a great day.
Your title is very interesting. I would like to know what inspired you to choose to write in the genre that you wrote in. And what would you do? How do you call it? What would you describe the genre?
Yes. So that was inspired by my nephews and nieces. I wanted them to know. The very first one that I wrote was American History, Americans of African Descent. I realized that the school system doesn't really teach Black history because your history is what you contribute, not what people do to you. And we didn't contribute slavery and segregation, so that's not our history. So I wanted them to see history, Black history. So it's children's book. It's a children's book, basically ages 5 through, I'll say, 10. And I wanted them to see real Black history. But then I realized that they don't just not teach Black history in school. They don't teach any history that's not white history. And I decided to make a book series highlighting people of all nationalities and ethnicities that were, in America, and they either invented something or innovative in some type of way. And that is what inspired me, so that my nephews and nieces can see something more than what the school system is teaching.
That's beautiful. It's interesting. Like I tell you, I'm fascinated with spirituality and history, and I've come to learn that before I believe the 18th century, it was illegal for anyone of color or ethnicity to read, right?
Yes.
So if you read anything published in, let's say, 1700s, it's very, very, very scary how much truth they told. And it really contradicts the history that we're taught in school. But you know that it's truth because, as I say, it was illegal for us to read. Right. So they were writing to each other, and they told each other the truth. And it's sad they don't teach that in school.
Well, I'm aware that most, due to the shame of American history, they rewrote it for the school system.
Yeah.
So most of what they teach is not true in any way, shape, or form.
Because they have to give you something that you can be proud of.
Right. Exactly. That pretty much they don't want Americans to know the truth, the truth. They want Americans to think that this is the best country in the world that always had great things in it, and they don't want you to know the truth. And
unfortunately,
it's sad.
Most times we're very ugly. Okay, so here's a question for you, right? How long, and this is me being curious, this is the nerd part of me, how long did it take you to do your research before you wrote your books?
Well, it's an 8-book series. Each book took between 2 to 3 days. Yeah, I guess I'm not shocked, because when I first thought of it, I said, oh, it should take me about a day. But I was just shocked of how much, I would do research and then find something on someone, but I couldn't find enough information on someone, so I couldn't use them. And I was just shocked of how much American history is just not online. And it's not because, they don't know, it's because they've hidden it. And I was just so frustrated and how much time it was taking me to. I was only doing 14 each in a book, and it was taking me, in my opinion, way too much time just to find only 14 people. And it's not because they, black people or Asians or Hispanics or people like that haven't done anything. It's just they've been hiding for so long what other people have contributed to the American history. So it was, at one point I just thought about giving up and saying, forget it, I'm not going to do this anymore. But I felt like I couldn't stop. So.
Well, I'm glad you didn't give up. I'm glad you didn't. Me personally, I plan on following or reading all 8 volumes. I do. It's sad, but at the same token, for me, it's also inspiring. Because for someone to go out their way to hide something from you, that means that it's worth you discovering it.
Yeah.
On a side note, just FYI, I did this a few years back. If you Google Black August and Black History, you'll be amazed. There's a big thing going on now that a few years back, a lot of people think that August really should have been Black History Month because all the things that were monumental for our people that happened in that month. One day when you get a chance, just Google that, and you'll see I was astonished. There's over 100 things that we contributed to that I didn't even, and I thought I knew a lot. So,
thank you for that.
Let me see. I have another good one for you.
Sure.
But are you after this series? Are you strictly sticking with history, or are you plan on one day writing, or do you write, or have you written in another genre?
I've written in so many different genres already. I don't. I like to say I don't segregate my gift. I know I've read articles that say you should mostly stick to one genre, but when I feel it, I write it.
Okay, so how long have you been writing, may I ask?
The first book I published was in 2007-ish.
Okay.
And I've been publishing since then.
You've been publishing since then, self-publishing, or?
Yes.
Okay. I see. After the interview, I'm going to pick your brain, because that's where I'm interested in going and heading to. So I'll have to pick your brain on that. Let me see. I took me some notes earlier. Okay, so have you found, or do you find that the information you do dig up and unveil, do you find it affecting you emotionally in your normal life?
I don't believe so. You mean for the history book, or just for in general?
Well, just in general, like the topic of your history book, I would think it's such a sensitive subject. Like, I know a lot of times in history it happened that, let's say our people were credited or were the ones who invented something or discovered something, and a lot of times it was stolen from them and another identity given to them.
Right.
If you read something like that, to me, it affects me emotionally.
What answer did I give to that question? Don't go away, because we'll be right back with more of this interview.
UCB Series presents American History Series, an 8-series book celebrating American history. This month, we're celebrating Asian American history. The book is available now. Go to authorkcbell.com for more information.
And we are back. Let's get back into this interview. So I was aware prior to doing this that when the English people who first came to America and stole the land, etc., they just had a different mindset. They believed if you were not only white-skinned but born and raised in England, you were not a human being. They considered you a barbarian. So So anyone, it didn't matter your skin color, Irish, Italian, Germans, people from Switzerland, when they first migrated to America back in the 1800s, there were Holocausts going on. They would, get off the ship and come here, and if they weren't murdered, they a lot of them weren't allowed to buy housing. They weren't allowed to buy businesses because they didn't believe anyone who was not from England was considered a human being, which is
Yeah.
even, which is even why when you read the, what do they call it, Declaration of Independence, and they say all men are created equal, and you say, well, then how come they still didn't treat the slaves equally? Because when they said men, they meant Englishmen. They believed only
Yeah.
men from England were humans. All other people were barbarians. So
Okay.
because I'm aware, I mean, at the time I first learned that, I was saddened to feel that way, that they felt that way. But even now, they're people from England are not that bad, but a lot of them still believe they're superior to other people. That's just a mindset they've always had, and it's out of ignorance. A lot of them don't anymore. A lot of them realize that that's wrong, but there are still people in England who believe that their ways are better than everyone else's, so to speak. So
Yeah,
uh,
I've come across that.
it's just, I mean, I remember, where was I? Oh, I was at a meeting for a theater company I used to be a part of, and she was saying how someone from England came over to her home or whatever, and they were making jokes that they were using the wrong spoon for tea. So that's just how they've always been. That their ways are better, and if you do it the wrong way, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And so that's just the way it was. And so they mistreated everyone, and it is frustrating. But what's more frustrating is that we as Americans today, we don't ourselves, not enough of us ourselves, research so we can actually see. Because all this unrest and racism and stuff is going on is because no one really knows the true history of America.
Okay, now here's another, again, one of my personal questions. You said that you've written in quite a few genres.
Yes.
In these last 13 years, what would you say is your favorite book that you've written and published?
I wouldn't call it my favorite, but the one book that stands out the most would be it's a book that has two books in one book. It's called Essays from Dysfunctional Families: Literary Betrayal, and it's
Uh-huh.
basically the first book, Essays from Dysfunctional Families, is written by a fictional author, and then the second book is the react. Basically, he wrote a book about his family and friends, their dysfunctions, their family dysfunctions, without their permission. He did change names and all that, but when he published a book, his family and friends realized what he did. And so the second book, Literary Betrayal, is his family and friends' reactions to his book. And so I would say, I wouldn't call it my favorite, but I always choose that book because it's a unique book. I believe I'm the only person who's ever done something like that. And the fact that I wrote a book within a book about a book, it's, to me, it's, I just find it, and the fact that I also had problems getting it copywritten because the copyright office thought that the fictional author that I listed was a real author, and they couldn't understand why his name was on the book, but his name wasn't in the copyrights. And so
Oh, okay.
they originally wouldn't give me the copyrights until I called, and I tried to explain it to them, and I don't think they got it, but they gave it to me anyways.
Now, it's crazy because I've read so much in my life that a lot of the books that I read, title stuff are forgetting, but this sounds interesting. This sounds familiar. Has it ever been a movie or just strictly in a book?
No, just a book.
Then I've come across your book before.
Really? That's
I'm telling
funny.
you. Because it's interesting you said he wrote it, all the names and everything was different, but I believe somebody stumbled across it on an accident or they started reading it and then sent word to someone else that, hey, this sounds very close to this. Somebody else in the family And they started reading it, and that's how everybody ended up start reading it and finding out. And then I want to say the next time was a gathering or something, and that's how it came out. That's right.
Yeah, well, yes, he was out of the country for a while, and he decided he had a book signing, so he comes back and he decides to meet with the family, and the family is not very happy with him. There was
Yeah, I
like
read
a
that.
awesome. What are the odds of me interviewing an author who's read one of my books, all the way in California, and I'm here in New Jersey? Amazing. Well, that's all the time we have today for Writer to Writer interviews. Hope to see you again next week for another wonderful interview with another wonderful writer. Thank you for watching. See you again soon.
In regards to the question of what inspired me to write, I've been an avid reader since a child. And one of the first urban novels I came across, True to the Game, um, Terry Woods, Dutch, those were the beginnings that I saw that open the door. However, it seemed like once the door was open, everyone it came to told such a fantasy that every main character is like top notch. He's the alpha dog, he's the kingpin, he's selling kilos and has the best women in the world. It's just like what happened to the loser or the small guy? What happened to the middle guy, you know? And so and I got tired of reading stories where when they have a female in their life or a female character in the book, she's just super thugged out. Like, no, women don't respond that way. Not all women is going to allow you to have the side piece or for them to be the side piece or for them to allow you to disrespect them. So that played a big part into it too. I got tired of people depicting urban life in just one area or one era. Like for my Gorillas in the Bases, I tried each character to have so many different emotions and different characteristics at different points of their life, so they can see everyone's not balling. Some people actually working for a living and hustling on the side. Some people was working and praying they don't have to hustle. But everyone in the urban community has a family member that's struggling or have a family member that's been through the struggle. It's hard to speak, but within my next few works that come out, then readers and supporters will understand where I'm coming from, because Gorillas in the Bay is all urban, and it tells the glamorous street life with the drug sales, and mind you, it fits the cliche of what an urban novel is. But the next ones to come, if it's meant to be, Dirtbag, the BBO Club, 3 Times Crazy, these will not be urban novels talking about drug sales and street life as far as the negative point. It's lives that happen in the hood, because how can I say this? In the hood, you have the drug dealers, you have the people that break the law, but you still have people that work. Right. You have your teachers, you have that child that grows up in the hood, seeing everybody sell drugs, but still go through the struggle, still stay poor, wear the clothes and get picked on and talked about, and then go to college and make something of themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so many different stories. And my goal is to tell every single story that I know that happens in urban cities. And I believe it will take about 100 books to get to my goal.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. There's a stereotype for every type of neighborhood, and they basically, how do I say, cover over the stories that don't fit the stereotype.
Yeah, and then it doesn't make it any better if we're the ones adding to the stereotype.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And some people just do it for the money. They don't care. They want the sales.
Right.
Or I don't know what inspires every other author to write. I just know for me, I want raw, uncut. This is what life is in California, Bay Area. This is the life that I've seen growing up. This is the life that friends and family members of mine experienced. And these are true stories. As well as I will drop some books where this is what I wish life was like. Or this is what could have become of my life or a friend's life. Or does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sometimes maybe you have to excuse me. Sometimes I get very long-winded.
That's fine. That's totally fine.